Hello, my Christian friends. I'm Dr. Donald Jones, and welcome to 10 Minutes of Theology from the Bible. Welcome to our series entitled Defending Your Life, How Christians May Defend Themselves Against Attack. This is based on my new book of the same name. I put a link in the description below if you would like to purchase it. This book is not a discussion of the Second Amendment, which guarantees us the right to bear arms, but instead a comprehensive, detailed biblical explanation of God's command to bear arms. Self-defense and the defense of others pours out of His very nature, power, and attributes, and is an intricate part of His societal and relational structures on the earth and in the heavenly places. Whatever our opinions are concerning this subject, we are to submit ourselves to God's commandments in the Bible, and God has a lot to say about it. These videos will be short summaries of the scriptural presentations in each chapter of my book. This is the 8th session based on chapter 8 entitled The Natural Inclination. We have learned that God defends Himself, that is His purposes and plans, those He loves, and the innocent, because this is who He is and what He does. And then we are to imitate Him. Now we move on in our series to another reason we know that the defense of self, those we love, and the innocent is the correct way in which we are to handle physical attacks. And that is because it is a natural inclination. God has put within our hearts a deep desire to defend ourselves, those we love, and the innocent. We are naturally inclined to protect ourselves and others. In our daily lives, we have fences around our houses, locks on our doors, many of us have security systems, and everyone has something they would use for defense, even if it is just a baseball bat. The Bible has many examples of this natural inclination to defend, so let's look at a few. Example 1. We see the natural desire to defend ourselves, those we love, and the innocent in the family, in the Bible. Family members protect each other. Parent to child, adult children to parents, siblings to each other, an extended family will come to defend other members of their extended family. An illustration of this is in Exodus 2, 1-10. When Pharaoh commanded the Hebrew midwives to kill every male baby born, the parents of Moses hid him for as long as they could. Then the mother and father of Moses protected him as an infant by orchestrating his adoption by Pharaoh's daughter. His parents were naturally inclined to protect their son, and their plan succeeded. Another illustration is in 2 Samuel 12, 13-18. When David committed adultery with Bathsheba and murdered her husband to cover it up, the Lord's judgment was to take his infant son. David's response would be typical of any father in that situation. He begged God to let him live. He attempted to protect his son through his prayers, which were his only defense in this incident. Unfortunately, his prayerful defense failed, but he tried. Another illustration is found in Genesis 14, 8-16, and we've referred to this many times. Abraham's natural inclination was to rescue his nephew Lot when he was captured while living in Sodom and Gomorrah. His uncle was naturally inclined to rescue him at great personal risk to him and his household. Another illustration is in Matthew 2, 13-14. When Mary and Joseph were informed of Herod's desire to murder their infant, they did not hesitate to flee to Egypt. Mary and Joseph were naturally inclined to follow the Lord and flee in order to defend their child's life. Another illustration is Luke 2, 42-52. When the parents of Jesus discovered that he was not with the caravan, they panicked and began to search for him. Mary and Joseph's hurried response to find Jesus was from a natural desire to save their kid. Wouldn't we? A second example of the natural desire humans possess to defend themselves and others is their constant building of protective barriers. In ancient times, cities would have walls built around them to protect their citizens. Some cities would be built on mountains or homes on mountains, and there would be homes in caves, and they would take advantage of many natural barriers. An illustration of this is Joshua 6, 1-5. The city of Jericho was the first city attacked by Israel when they entered the Promised Land, and it was surrounded by walls to protect it from invading armies. These high walls had to be scaled with large ladders or destroyed with large boulders to bring it down so the army could attack. This was not something that could be done easily. It was a great protection. I'm sure you remember that God brought the walls down after Israel had marched around it 7 days, blew their trumpets, and shouted. Then the army invaded the city. An illustration of this also is in 2 Chronicles 14, when Asa became king. He sought the Lord, and God gave him peace throughout the land. So what did the king do? He took the opportunity to fortify his cities against attack. The natural inclination. Listen to verse 7. For he said to Judah, let's build these cities and make walls around them with towers, gates, and bars. So they built and prospered. Another example of this powerful desire and inclination within man is man's constant watching for danger. If there is even an inkling that danger may come, people start watching for it. In ancient times, when they created cities, not only did they put walls and towers around them, but they put people in them to watch for danger coming from far away, so they could sound an alarm. An illustration of this is found in 2 Samuel 13. When Absalom killed Amnon, David thought he had murdered all his sons, but his watchmen saw them coming back with their servants from their gathering. 2 Samuel 13, 34-35. But Absalom fled. The young man who kept the watch lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, many people were coming by the way of the hillside behind him. Jonadab said to the king, behold, the king's sons are coming. It is as your servant said. Another illustration of this is in 2 Kings 9. Ahab was one of the most evil kings of Israel and had an evil wife named Jezebel. When he died, his son Joram reigned for 7 years. Since he was evil like his father, the Lord God decided to replace him. Elijah the prophet was dispensed to anoint Jehu to be king. After anointing Jehu, he took an army and went to take the throne from Joram as God desired. Of course, Jehu as king was heavily protected with walls and watchmen and would see him coming, but did not know what he had desired to do. 2 Kings 9:17. Now the watchman was standing on the tower in Jezreel, and he spied the company of Jehu as he came and said, I see a company. Joram said, take a horseman and send to meet them. Notice he had a watchman, and they warned him of his approach. Of course, Jehu did not tell him of his purpose until he was within arrow's range, and then shot and killed the king. Here we see watchmen keep an eye out for enemies or some other danger. This is done naturally for their protection. It's inside them. They just do it. A fourth example of this natural desire to defend is the protection of guards. An illustration of this is the placement of guards on the walls with the watchmen. These guards would be the first line of defense in a city. They would provide enough time to allow the army or even the populace to arm themselves for battle. One illustration is found in Nehemiah 7. Here, the Hebrews came back into the land and built the wall around the city. Once this was done, they set up guards because the inhabitants who had been there were threatening them. Nehemiah 7:3. I said to them, don't let the gates of Jerusalem be opened until the sun is hot, and while they stand guard, let them shut the doors and you bar them. So they were ready, and they had the watchmen and the guards there. Of course, like our presidents have Secret Service, the kings also had their own guards to protect them. One illustration is David, who had a security force. In 2 Samuel 23, it speaks of a man named Benaiah. He became the head of that security force because he was a capable man. Verse 22, Benaiah the son of Jehoiada was more honorable than the 30, so David set him over his guard. These are obvious truths, but it is important to state them to confirm that defense of ourselves, those we love, and the innocent are natural inclinations from God. The fifth example is the carrying of weapons by ordinary people. Weapons were built, possessed, and then often carried by the general populace rather than exclusively by the military or police. It is a natural desire within people to have weapons to protect themselves, those they love, and the innocent. Think about this. Those who do not carry weapons are assuming that they will never be in danger, or those with weapons will quickly come to their aid. We see neither of these notions in the scriptures. Ancient man as well as God's people always built themselves weapons for protection. Of course, they would also use them offensively, but the first purpose was always defensive. One illustration is in 2 Chronicles 32. When the Assyrians came to raid God's people, Hezekiah immediately began to build up his armory. It says, he took courage, built up all the wall that was broken down, there's the wall, and raised it up to the towers, there's the towers, with the other wall outside, and strengthened Milo in David's city, and made weapons and shields in abundance. The ones who would receive the weapons would have been any man who could still wield them. We see this clearly with the Moabites, where they were about to do battle with the Israelites. 2 Kings 3:21. Now when all the Moabites heard that the kings had come up to fight against them, they gathered themselves together, all who were able to put on armor, young and old, and stood on the border. That was the concept of ancient man. All who were able came out to defend themselves. Another illustration is found in 2 Chronicles 23, 3-7. Sometimes priests even carried weapons. Sometime after Israel split into two kingdoms, Judah was ruled by Ahaziah. He was treacherous toward the people because he followed the advice of his evil mother. When he passed away, the mother took control of the kingdom. She killed the potential heirs to the throne and then ruled it herself. The youngest son of Ahaziah was rescued and kept in hiding until he was 7 years old. Then several leaders gathered the heads of the households, and the Levites, the priestly line, and prepared to stand against the queen, and declared Joash, the only surviving son, king of Judah. In the passage, the priests are seen protecting Joash, the new king, with weapons in their hands. And of course, notice the heads of the household. In Nehemiah 4, which we have discussed throughout this series, Nehemiah came back to the land of Israel from Babylon to rebuild the wall. When the people in the land opposed him, he directed the people with him, ordinary people, to carry swords and to work at the same time. Nehemiah 4:17. Those who built the wall, those who bore burdens, everyone with one of his hands did the work, and with the other held his weapon. These were construction workers, the way we would think of them. Nehemiah 4:23. Everyone even took his weapon to the water, to get water. They all had weapons. Some might say, well, we live in a civilized society where people depend on the police to protect us. That is correct. But let's look at just a general, simple national statistics for the United States. For crimes of violence, including rape and sexual assault, only 20% of the time can police arrive within 5 minutes of the 911 call. 28% within 5 minutes. 30% of the time between 6 and 10 minutes, and 33% of the time within 11 minutes to 1 hour. That's the most violent of crimes. For robberies, within 5 minutes, 32% of the time. 38% between 6 and 10 minutes, and 28% within 11 minutes to 1 hour. That's amazing. Need I say more? No. You could check those stats yourself. The bottom line is this: even the police know that they may not get there in time. As we will see in another video chapter, a person usually had a staff to protect himself. It was not a walking stick, as we would think of today. And also, many would acquire a sword if the perceived danger would be greater than a staff could defend them. Sixth, when trouble comes for people in the scriptures, we see the human inclination by others to come to their defense and rescue. We intuitively know this. Someone screams for help, others should come to their defense. And when people stand around and no one helps, everyone reacts in horror when they see it. Here is just one example. In 1 Samuel 23, while a fugitive, David heard that a city of his own tribe near him were about to be attacked by the hated Philistines. David immediately wanted to go and defend them against his enemies. Why? It was his natural inclination. Verse 5. David and his men went to Keilah and fought with the Philistines and brought away their livestock and killed them with a great slaughter. So David saved the inhabitants of Keilah. Well, these are just a few of the examples from the book. Let's summarize. In this video, we discovered that the scriptures provide many examples that the defense of others or seeking our own defense is truly natural. It proceeds from our own humanness and from inside us. This can be clearly seen through the many familial responses of protection, the many walls, towers, watchmen, guards around the cities, and the carrying of weapons by both priests and the people, and of course, the natural desire to come to the aid of others as seen by David to his countrymen. Defending ourselves, those we love, and the innocent is perfectly natural because it was put inside us by God. This is Dr. Donald Jones. I would appreciate your support by taking the actions you see on my left. Goodbye, my Christian friends. May God bless you.